A plate of handmade peachy pasta with wild boar ragu, a glass of Brunello, and a view that looks like it was painted in the 1500s, under €20. That's a regular lunch in rural Tuscany, Italy, where the food and landscapes are world class, but the prices, once you leave Florence, stay remarkably reasonable. Most visitors squeeze this region into a single day trip and miss something extraordinary. Tuscany could fill 2 full weeks without repeating itself. The region stretches from the Apennine foothills in the north down to the Tyrrhenian coast, and packed inside that space you'll find medieval walled cities, volcanic hot springs, vineyards producing some of Italy's most respected wines, and a wild southern coastline where Italian cowboys still herd cattle on horseback. We're covering 11 places across Tuscany, moving from the medieval heart of Siena, through wine country, past thermal baths, and out to an island Napoleon once called home. By the end, you'll have a full road trip itinerary. Siena is the natural starting point, a medieval city that rivals Florence in beauty but moves at half the pace. The Piazza del Campo is the centre of everything, a shell-shaped square that slopes gently downward, ringed by terracotta buildings and outdoor cafes. Twice each summer, this piazza becomes a racetrack for the Palio, a bareback horse race between the city's 17 contrade, neighbourhood districts that function almost like small nations within the city. Even when the race isn't running, you feel the contrade everywhere, flags, crests, and rivalries that go back centuries. The Duomo is free to admire from outside, and around €12 gets you inside the cathedral complex, including a mosaic floor that took 600 years to complete. Siena works well as a half-day visit, but staying overnight lets you experience the piazza after the tour buses leave, when the locals reclaim it with wine and conversation. 40 minutes west by car, San Gimignano rises from wheat fields like a medieval Manhattan. 14 surviving towers, there were once 72, were built by competing noble families, each trying to outdo the other in height. The result is a skyline unlike anything else in Tuscany. The town gets thick with visitors between 10 and 4 during summer, so arriving early or staying for dinner makes a real difference. Gelateria Dondoli on Piazza della Cisterna has won World Gelato Championships. The saffron and pine nut flavour is their signature, and it's worth the line. Climbing the Torre Grossa costs €8 and gives you a panoramic sweep across the surrounding countryside. Allow 90 minutes for the town itself, longer if you want to wander the nearby vineyards producing Vernaccia, Tuscany's most notable white wine. Between Siena and Florence lies Chianti, a patchwork of vineyards, olive groves, and stone farmhouses connected by winding roads that justify renting a car all on their own. The SR 222, known locally as the Chiantigana, is one of Italy's great driving routes. It links small towns like Grave and Chianti, where a Saturday morning market fills the main piazza with produce and cured meats, and Castellina in Chianti, where you can walk along medieval ramparts above the rooftops. Wine tasting here is informal and welcoming. Most estates charge between €10 and €25 for a tasting of 3 to 5 wines, often with olive oil and local cheese included. Booking a day ahead is enough for most places. Castello di Verrazzano and Antinori nel Chianti Classico are well-known estates, but smaller producers like Fontidi or Isole e Ileana offer more intimate experiences, with the winemaker often pouring the wine personally. A car is essential. There's no practical public transport between the estates. We've covered the cities and the vineyards, but here's where Tuscany starts to surprise people. Head south of Chianti and the landscape opens into something that doesn't look quite like anywhere else in Italy. The Val d'Orcia is the landscape you've seen on every Tuscan postcard. Rolling hills striped with green and gold, solitary cypress trees lining dirt roads, light that seems warmer here than anywhere else. UNESCO gave the entire valley World Heritage status, and driving the SP 146 between Pienza and Montalcino is a ridiculously photogenic stretch of road, especially in late spring when the wheat is still green, or early autumn when everything goes amber. Pienza is tiny, walkable in 20 minutes, but it punches well above its weight. The pecorino cheese made here, aged in everything from walnut leaves to truffle ash, is extraordinary. Shops along Corso il Rossolino offer free tastings, and a half-wheel of aged pecorino makes a practical souvenir that clears customs without trouble. 20 minutes south, Montalcino is the home of Brunello, a wine that can cost over €100 a bottle at home. But tasting it at source, with a view over the valley from the medieval fortress, runs as little as €5 a glass. The fortress itself is free to enter and doubles as a remarkably atmospheric wine bar. Just 10 minutes from Pienza, the village of Bagno Vignoni has a main square unlike any other in Italy. Instead of a piazza, there's a large rectangular thermal pool steaming gently in the open air. The pool itself is for looking, not swimming, but follow the path behind the village and down the hillside to reach the free, natural thermal pools in the river below, where warm water cascades over limestone terraces into rockpools. Locals come in the evening, sometimes with a bottle of wine and bread. For something more structured, the Adler Spa and Hotel Pasta Marcucci both offer thermal bathing from around €15. The water is genuinely warm even in December, making this a year-round stop and a reason Tuscany works in winter too. 30 minutes east, Montepulciano sits on a high ridge with views stretching in every direction. The town is steeper than it looks. The main street, the Corso, climbs relentlessly from the lower gate to the Piazza Grande at the summit, past Renaissance palazzos and wine cellars carved directly into the tufa rock beneath the town. Vino Nobile di Montepulciano, the local wine, is Brunello's more approachable neighbour, similar grape territory at roughly half the price. The Cunci cellar, right on the piazza, has been producing wine since the 11th century and offers free tastings in their underground caves. Pair the visit with lunch at Osteria Acquicetta, where bistecca alla Fiorentina, Florentine steak, is served by the kilo at communal tables. Expect to pay around €40 to €45 for a generous steak shared between two. South of Montepulciano, the hill town of Cortona looks out over the flat expanse of the Val di Chiana and on clear days all the way to Lake Trasimeno in neighbouring Umbria. The town gained international attention from the book Under the Tuscan Sun, but has held on to its character despite the fame. Narrow stone streets, a couple of strong museums, and a weekly Saturday market selling local honey, hand-stitched leather, and seasonal produce. The MAEC Museum, dedicated to Etruscan artefacts, costs €10 and gives genuine depth to this region's pre-Roman history. Cortona was already an Etruscan stronghold a full 1,000 years before Florence existed. The Piazza della Repubblica is the evening aperitivo spot with outdoor tables and a church bell that marks the hour above you. Now, most visitors turn around at this point and head back towards Florence, but Tuscany has an entire western edge, a coastline and an island that barely registers on the typical itinerary. And honestly, some of the region's most unexpected moments are out there. 90 minutes northwest from Cortona, Lucca is one of Tuscany's consistently overlooked cities. Its Renaissance walls are fully intact, a ring of broad, tree-lined ramparts converted to a 4-kilometre path for walking and cycling that circles the entire old town. Renting a bike costs about €3 an hour, and the loop along the top of the walls, with views down into private gardens and across red-tiled rooftops, is a genuinely lovely ride, and something kids enjoy as much as adults. Inside the walls, the Piazza dell'Anfiteatro follows the exact oval footprint of a Roman amphitheatre. You can trace the ancient arena's shape in the curve of the surrounding buildings. Lucca has a strong food culture. Cecina, a thin chickpea flour flatbread baked until crisp, is sold from bakeries all over town for a couple of euros. The city is flat and compact, which makes it one of the more stroller-friendly and family-friendly stops in the region. Small legs do well here. An hour south of Lucca, or reachable directly from the Val d'Orcia in about 90 minutes, lies the Maremma, Tuscany's wild south. This is a stretch of coastline backed by pine forests and marshland, home to the Volterra, Tuscan cowboys who still herd long-horned Maremma cattle on horseback just as they've done for centuries. The Parco Naturale della Maremma covers a wide section of this coast. Entry is €8, and several walking trails lead through Mediterranean scrub to sandy beaches where you might be alone for hundreds of metres in either direction. Trail A2 is the most walked route, a 2-hour loop ending at the beach of Cala di Forno. Bring water and something to eat, there's nothing to buy inside the park. For something less rugged, the beach town of Castiglione della Pescaia has a long stretch of sand, waterfront seafood restaurants, and a hilltop castle looking down the coast. The shallow water and summertime lifeguards make it a good choice for families with younger children. Inland from the coast, an hour's drive through quiet countryside brings you to Volterra, a wind-battered hilltop city that feels more austere and ancient than its neighbours. This was one of 12 great Etruscan city-states, and the ruins of a Roman theatre sit just below the city walls, visible and free to view from the road above. Volterra is known for alabaster. The translucent stone has been carved here for over 3,000 years, and small workshops along Via Porta al Arco still produce hand-carved lamps, chess sets and bowls. Watching the artisans at work costs nothing and is genuinely fascinating. The Museum Etrusco Guarnacci at €8 holds a major Etruscan collection, including over 600 carved funeral urns arranged by era. The town runs quieter than San Gimignano or Montepulciano, fewer buses, more room to breathe, a different kind of atmosphere altogether. And finally, from the port of Piombino on the southern coast, a 1-hour ferry crosses to the Island of Elba, the place where Napoleon was exiled in 1814 and by most accounts had a fairly good time doing it. Ferries run frequently, costing around €15 each way for foot passengers. Elba has over 150 beaches, ranging from white sand to red iron oxide shores that look almost Martian. Sansone Beach on the north coast has water clear enough to snorkel directly from shore, and kayaking the western coastline reveals sea caves and secluded coves that can't be reached by road. The interior is surprisingly mountainous. Monte Capane rises just over 1,000 metres, and a cable car carries you to the summit for around €18 return, with views reaching Corsica on a good day. Napoleon's villa in Portoferraio costs €5 and is smaller than you'd expect for an emperor, even a deposed one. 2 or 3 days on Elba barely scratches the surface, but even a single day trip gives you a taste of what feels like an entirely different corner of the Mediterranean. Tuscany's reputation sits so heavy on the Florence, Chianti, Pisa triangle that the rest of the region rarely gets the attention it deserves. Thermal pools steaming at dusk, the Maremma's empty coastline, Etruscan ruins older than Rome, a Napoleonic island with more beaches than you could visit in a week. It's all here, connected by roads that are themselves part of the experience. Rent a car, bring an appetite, and give this place more than a day trip. If you enjoyed this, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Like, if this was interesting, hit the subscribe for more, and turn that notification bell on. Like, if this was interesting, hit the subscribe for more, and turn that notification bell on. Like, if this was interesting, hit the subscribe for more, and turn that notification bell on. Like, if this was interesting, hit the subscribe for more and turn that notification bell on.